What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today I'm going to tell you how to supercharge your practice routine. Before we dive into the tutorial, if you enjoy my content, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment below. What exactly does supercharge your practice routine mean? To me, it means putting order into what you practice, having a plan and doing things purposefully, as opposed to just getting your saxophone out and playing through some stuff and jamming out a little bit and just playing your saxophone. Now, that's a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend just getting your saxophone out and jamming out. But if you want to have constant, strong forward progress, then you need to come up with a game plan. So the first thing you want to do to supercharge your practice routine is come up with goals. You want a long-term goal and then some short-term goals that are related to the long-term goal. So if you've been following my YouTube for the last couple months, you know that I have been in Mexico. And when I'm in Mexico, hanging out at the beach, I am not playing or practicing my saxophone nearly as much as when I'm home. So I play the saxophone for about 30 minutes a day here, where at home I practice for about an hour and then I'll play for another hour or two a day if I'm giving lessons or doing a tutorial or just jamming out on my saxophone. So one of my long-term goals when I get home is going to be to get my technique, my chops, back together. So when I'm here, I lose a little bit of technique. So my main goal when I get home, my long-term goal is going to be to get my technique back together. Now, if we're talking about long-term goals, we want to talk about something very specific. So for me, I'm going to be working on technique, which is going to be scales and chop shop series type of exercises. So for me, my long-term goal will be to be able to play all of my scales at 300 beats per minute, eighth notes at 300 beats per minute. Now, if I were to try to do that now, I could kind of do it, but it would be really sloppy. I want it to be super clean. So my long-term goal would be play my scales and my technique exercises really fast, 300 beats per minute, super clean, playing eighth notes. Now, I'm not going to be able to just do that when I get home and I start working on a regular practice session. So I want to have small-term goals also. So my first goal will be to be able to play my scales and technique exercises really clean at 200 beats per minute. For me, that's going to be fairly easy and it's going to be a really good starting point. And from there, I'm going to kind of keep bumping it up as I go. But every day, I'm going to have the short-term goal of how fast I want it to be and how long I want to work on it to get it to that speed. Now, I'm talking specifically about my long-term and short-term goal, but these could be anything. It could be learning your scales. It could be learning your minor scales. It could be learning a song. It could be learning chords to a song. It could be anything that you want to work on that you have a long-term goal for, and then you are going to break that up into several short-term goals to get to your long-term goals. If you already have a long-term goal or watching this video has made one pop up in your mind, put it in the comments below. Let me know what your long-term goals are. Now, once you have your long-term goal and you have some short-term goals, the next thing you want to do is make a plan. Make a plan. So many people, when they practice, they just kind of randomly open up their music book, they play a song, they move on to another song, they play a scale, they play another scale. The scales aren't necessarily in order. Everything is just kind of like meandering through your practice time. Now, you will get better doing that, but you're not going to have a straight path. If you come up with a plan, for example, if your goal is to learn all 12 of your major scales, if you work on 2 at a time or 3 at a time, and then your plan would be as you get those 3 sounding really good, add in 1 more. Then when you get that done, add in the next one. When you get that one done, add in the next one. So your plan is to work on 3 or 4 scales, get them down, and then continuously add in a new scale until you reach your long-term goal, which is be able to play all 12 of your major scales. A good analogy that I use when I'm teaching is if your long-term goal was to deadlift 300 pounds and you could only deadlift 200 pounds, you wouldn't go in every day and try to deadlift 300 pounds. You would never get closer to your goal of deadlifting 300 pounds. The way to get there would be to start at 200 pounds and then maybe go down a little bit, go down to 180 pounds and deadlift 2 or 3 times. And then go back up to 200 and then go back to 180, 200, then go up heavier and then go lighter. So the way to accomplish that goal that works perfectly on a saxophone or any musical instrument is to chip away at the goal. When you have this giant goal, you want to take little pieces of it at a time. You're never going to accomplish the whole big goal all at once, or even in a couple practice sessions or a week. You want to be constantly chipping away at that goal until you accomplish it. And then as you accomplish that goal, you're automatically going to be coming up with other goals that you want to do that are probably related to the thing that you just accomplished. It's all a building process. If you'd like to take the guesswork out of what to practice, how to practice it, and what to practice next, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. In my Sax School, I take you step by step along a guided path, telling you exactly what to practice, how to practice it, how long to practice it, and once you accomplish it, what to practice next. In every pathway in my Sax School, I also have a detailed practice routine that makes it really easy to set your long-term goals, your short-term goals, and work your way through accomplishing everything that you're working on and moving forward. So if that sounds like something you would like to check out, I'll put a link in the description. One last thing I would like to touch on in this tutorial is the difference between practicing your saxophone and playing your saxophone. When you're practicing, you should be trying to have forward motion, you're accomplishing a goal, and you're following a plan to move forward. When you're playing your saxophone, you're just picking it up and you're jamming out. Now, both of them are equally important. Like, you don't want to just practice your saxophone and never just play for fun. Playing the saxophone should be fun, otherwise why would you be doing it? So when you're playing your saxophone, you're going to pick tunes that you haven't played before, or maybe tunes that you can already play. You're going to improvise, you're going to jam out, you're just going to have a good time playing your saxophone. Now, that is awesome, and that should definitely be a part of your practice session, probably a substantial part of your practice session. But if you want forward motion, you also need to have time dedicated to practicing for forward movement of getting better at the saxophone. So make sure that you know the difference between what you're doing when you are playing and practicing your saxophone. That's going to help you move forward very quickly. Now, I want to re-emphasize that just picking up your saxophone and jamming out is 100% something you should be doing all of the time. I do that a lot. But if you want to improve on the saxophone, you need to have dedicated, structured practice time where you are trying to accomplish your long-term and short-term goals. Here are some examples of short-term and long-term goals with specific things that you might be practicing. One might be working on your tone, and for that you might be trying to get your long tones to be really steady without any warbles. If you already have your long tones really good, you might want to control your long tones with dynamics, getting whisper soft and really loud without losing your pitch and keeping a really good sound. If you already have that down, you might want to start working on overtones and try and get your overtones really clean. So when it comes to tone, there's all different kinds of long-term and short-term goals that you can set. The next would be technique. When it comes to technique, you should be working on some type of technique exercise. The exercise that I teach in my sax school is called the chop shop, and it takes you step by step from easy exercises to harder and harder and harder exercises where we go faster and faster, but it's all a step-by-step process. You should be doing some type of technique practice to get your fingers moving faster and cleaner, because the faster and cleaner your fingers are, the better everything that you play is gonna sound. You should be working on scales. If you already know your major scales, move on to your Mixolydian scales. If you know those, move on to Dorian minor. If you know those, move on to natural minor. There's always another scale that you can be working on. And of course, you should be learning songs. The whole reason you're playing the saxophone is probably to be able to play songs. So you can easily use songs as your long and short-term goal. So if you have a song that you want to play, say it's a 2 or 3 minute song, you can work on it section by section. So your goal for the first day could be to get the first 8 or 16 measures down really good. Then the next day, get the next 8 or 16 measures down really well, and then connect them, and you keep chipping away at that song. When it comes to improvisation, depending on where you are in your improvisation journey, it could be starting to learn how to read chord symbols, playing solos with your blues scale, working your way through more difficult chord changes. There's always something to work on when it comes to improv. Again, in my sax school, when I'm teaching improv, we start with 1-note solos and we build from that into using an entire scale. Then we take that scale and we put chords to it. Then we change the chords. Then we change the chords again. Then we make the chords a little bit harder. Then we change the key. We do all kinds of stuff so that you're constantly moving forward. That is what you want to do when you are learning how to improvise. Even if you hear the absolute top saxophone players in the world, they are always trying to figure out another thing or another way or another technique to play over top of their chord changes and the improv lines that they are playing. So those are a few examples of what I'm talking about when I say set long and short-term goals. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you now are ready to supercharge your practice routine, I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below of what your long-term goals are, and share this video with your friends. Thanks a lot.